Welcome to Father and Son, and welcome to you on this Thursday morning. What is it, the 3rd of March?
3rd of March. The summer is gone and autumn is upon us, and where we live in Melbourne, it's actually got quite cold already.
Yes, the first 3 days of the autumn are under 20 degrees top temperature. Well, there's a bit going on, Tom. The Greens, that Bob Brown has brought in this private members bill, which the caucus of the Labor Party passed in about 30 seconds, and now they found out that, because it means that a minister will not be able, if the legislation got through, to overturn either of the three territories which Australia runs, which is the Northern Territory, the Australian Capital Territory, and Norfolk Island. But the Parliament would still have a right to overrule. Now all of a sudden everybody's woken up that Northern Territory in particular wants to implement euthanasia. How would stop that? And same-sex marriage might get up there as well.
Well, I think in the ACT will almost certainly get up. But what you're seeing here is the Greens are calling in their cards, if you like, the deals that they did with Gillard late last year, post the election, to keep Labor in power. And so there are two things the Greens have asked for. The first is the carbon tax, which we'll talk about in a moment. And the second is the right of territories, as you put, not to be overridden by a minister. And what this means in the short term is Northern Territory will almost certainly legislate back in favour of euthanasia, and the ACT will almost certainly legislate for same-sex marriage. And of course, there's many people in the Labor Party and the coalition, of course, who are rather concerned about this. And the other thing to note is, of course,
both subjects divide people across party lines.
They do. I mean, it's not something that either party's been able to get to grips with, and as a result, they both rather just say, well, let's not go there. But they're going to be forced to go there now.
I'd support euthanasia, and I wouldn't support same-sex marriages. That's just my view.
Well, I would suggest that what you think is probably the most common belief in Australia. If you said to people, here are two things, say yes or no to each of them, I reckon in favour of euthanasia, maybe not in favour of gay marriage. But the point is that once you get it in, and if it can't be challenged in one territory, it'll spread. I don't mean it's the bad one, I'm just saying once it establishes a foothold. And the other interesting thing, of course, is Gillard also did a deal with Andrew Wilkie to gain power last year. And of course, his big sort of ask, if you like, was the federal government to intervene in the issue of poker machines.
Yes.
Now that's another big issue, because to date in Australia it's always been state governments which have control and legislate over poker machines. Yeah. And he's an anti-pokies campaigner, and he wants the federal government to step in. Now, if Gillard has said carbon tax, same-sex marriage, euthanasia, legislation on poker machines can't be far off.
No, I think that's probably right, but it may be a long way off, Tom, because she's having a lot of difficulties. And being in minority government is always very difficult, because she hasn't got a majority in either house, so they've got to be negotiating all the time. So these small parties and independents have an unusual amount of power, and she can't get anything done without them.
No, it's very interesting to see all these commentators on the left are blaming, right-wing shock jocks. I mean, we ought to talk about the carbon tax, but the fact is that people in Australia hate being delivered lies. They don't like election promises which are just broken willy-nilly, and that's what we've seen. The carbon tax has got to be one of the worst broken election promises we've seen in quite some time.
I couldn't agree with you more. Plus, the timing of it is so stupid, because here she's trying to get the flood levy through, having difficulty there. And then she's still got to get this mining tax thing agreed through the Parliament, and now she throws this one in the middle of it all.
Another tax. I mean, it's astonishing. So you're quite right. The flood levy, that is a tax. Everybody sees it that way. The mineral resources rent tax, which is the replacement of the old resources super profits tax, which of course brought down Kevin Rudd. And now you've got this latest carbon tax. And of course, people have already seen their power prices. I mean, power prices have gone through the roof prior to the introduction. So, from what I've seen, you can expect another 30, 40, 50% on your power bill. The Greens are saying, well, petrol has to be included, and Tony Abbott's going all out to stand there at petrol stations and put fuel in people's cars and tell them that hopefully that this will now cost 7 cents more a litre fairly soon. It's a real battle line, and I don't think it's one that the Labor Party is winning.
No, I agree. Well, the coalition's ahead in the polls, but Gillard's still a long way ahead of Abbott as the preferred Prime Minister. But if she doesn't get anything done, And I think she's finding it exceptionally difficult. Do you think there's a chance they'll get rid of her?
Well, you know, there's all sorts of rumours doing the rounds that two names keep popping up as potential successors. One is, of course, Bill Shorten,
Yes.
and I've heard it rumoured that he's the one advising Gillard in all these stupid policies. It's just so that she will stumble and he'll pick up the job. And the second, of course, is Greg Combay, who famously led the unions in the battle against Patrick Corporation on the Melbourne wharves in the 1990s. And lost. They don't seem to acknowledge that much these days.
Most people in the Labor Party regard Combay as much smarter than the other candidate, Shorten. And I see Bob Hawke came out supporting Combay over the weekend,
yes,
if there were to be a new leader.
Again, if I was Gillard, you'd probably wish that Bob Hawke just sort of stayed quiet for a while. But look, the thing is, I don't think federal Labor wants to be like New South Wales Labor, where they've just had 4 leaders in 4 years or whatever it is. They got rid of Rudd. There was a lot of bloodletting there. If they do the same thing with Gillard, well, I think they'd become unelectable. So I do think the best thing for the Labor Party is to stick with Gillard, stick with the minority government. The one good thing is the Greens and the Independents will keep supporting Labor because they know that if there isn't another election held, so if there is one, they'll probably lose.
Yeah, Oakeshott, I see in the Australian yesterday, Oakeshott, they did a survey in his electorate, the National Party, and he's liked by 40% of the people and disliked by 55%. Now, he had a huge support base coming to the last election, so he'll certainly lose his seat, as will the other bloke, Windsor, I think.
Well, the real reason Oakeshott's become unpopular is, of course, he's taken the unbelievable decision to grow a beard. Now, as we all know, you can't trust people with beards.
I agree.
And there aren't many politicians with beards. You remember a few of them like Gareth Evans and whatever, and Oakeshott's put himself into that camp. Now, what about Libya? This is the other thing. In the market report, I noticed that the oil price has gone through $100 a barrel. It's now $102 a barrel. In Asia, it's over $110 a barrel. Do you think that there's going to be an intervention either by the UN or the US to possibly help the uprising against Colonel Gaddafi?
I reckon the first thing they'll do is supply them with arms, but rather than troops. And I think that could happen. That could happen imminently. Obviously, in the United Nations, there's a lot of differences of opinion. Russia and China, seem to be fairly close to Gaddafi and don't want to have anything to do with it. And therefore, it's hard. I think this no-fly zone is going to be far too difficult to implement.
Well, it's right. The US Air Force, or probably it would be the US Navy, would have to, shoot down Libyan airplanes and take out Libyan anti-aircraft sites. And again, do the Americans really want to get drawn into another Middle East conflict? I can't see it happening.
I think they'll probably provide arms. I'm staggered that someone won't shoot Gaddafi.
It does seem amazing, but I think he's going to be hunkered down with what he perceives to be the loyal members of the military. But here's the thing, the West is now hounding Gaddafi and saying, we've got to freeze his assets, he's got to be ousted, this. Look at the terrible things he's doing. Well, the West needs to remember that it went into 2 countries, Afghanistan and Iraq, and was also responsible for hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths for regime change. And it's very hard to say that when the West does it, it's okay, but when Gaddafi tries to hang on to power, it's not okay. I don't really see the difference, to be honest.
No, I agree, but it's a lot different, and this is an internal uprising, which legitimises it much more, I think, than the US going into Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, exactly, that's what I mean, but I think it's very hard to take sides. With internal uprisings, sadly, the best thing to do is to stand back, deal with the humanitarian side as best you can, and then see who wins, because really, whoever wins, that's who you're going to have to deal with. Yeah,
but I think Gaddafi's gone. I can't see him winning. He had an iron control over Libya.
I agree.
And that's gone.
But I agree. But you've got to let the uprising do it. If he falls because the Americans go in, then there will be another uprising against the Americans, and that won't be good for anybody.
I hope that the uprising succeeds, because I think if we can get good democratic processes in some of these countries like Libya, it'll be very, very good for the people.
All right, we will see. Well, time's about up. But
I just wanted to mention the AFL starts. We've got the Grand Prix coming to Melbourne. It's a wonderful city. And the World Naked Bike Ride's coming here to Melbourne. You going to go and enter in that, Tom?
It's too cold.
Too cold. I wouldn't want to show off. So there's International Women's Day, the Dandenong Drum Festival. This place is alive and kicking. All right, thank you for watching. We'll see you all next week.